Today's Greek historiography claims that the ancient Macedonians were Greeks because their written language was Greek. In addition, they show writings found on the Macedonian territory written in ancient Greek. Of course, these claims cannot be taken seriously. Here's why. First, we will mention an undoubted fact that can be verified by anyone, even in Greek sources. And that is that not a single writing in Greek language existed on the whole Macedonian territory before the 5th century BC, i.e., from the time of the first serious contacts between the Macedonians and the Hellenistic culture. We know that old writings written in Greek dialects were found way before the 5th century BC on other parts of present-day Greece. But such writings did not exist in Macedonia. The first Macedonian king that initiated closer contacts between the Macedonians and the Hellenes was Aleksandar I, who lived in the 5th century BC. It is known that this king helped the Greeks in their war against Persia, for which he received the nickname Philhellene, which meant a foreigner that likes Hellenes. Later on, Aleksandar I invited Hellenistic artists and other cultural figures in the Macedonian yard. Some modern-day historians, for example Abel, believe that Aleksandar I, the Macedonian, was murdered by some notable Macedonians because of his pro-Greek politics, which, according to them, presented a threat to Macedonia. Nonetheless, it is a fact that writings in Greek language did not exist before the time of Aleksandar I. This raises a question. How could Macedonia be a country with Greek culture, but not a single writing in Greek language is found from the time when it existed, without close cultural relations with the Hellenes? How can Macedonia be considered as a Greek land, when it is known that at the time, the Greek language was not even spoken in Macedonia, especially not between the wider masses? But let's assume that the ancient Macedonian language did not exist in its written form, and that the first written language used by the ancient Macedonians was Greek. That does not mean at all that the ancient Macedonians were Greeks. In the previous parts of this show, we listed testimonies which claim that Macedonians virtually knew not a single word of the spoken Greek language. Furthermore, only the Greeks and Romans are known to have had their own written language in the classical period. Would that mean that all the people that used their language and alphabet were either Romans or Greeks? If so, it would mean that only two nations existed in the whole antiquity, and this consideration is foolish. Even the Turkish-Mongolian Bulgarians who came from Asia on the Balkans in the 7th century used the Greek alphabet. And it was the official alphabet of the first Bulgarian Khanate or kingdom for more than a century and a half. Does that mean they were also Greeks? What about the other nations from the time, Illyrians, Thracians, and others, who also used the Greek alphabet? Even the Romans wrote their chronicles in Old Greek dialects until the 2nd century BC. Were they also Greeks until the 2nd century BC and then suddenly became Romans? Also, numerous Greeks in the antiquity used to write in Latin, and a lot of examples are known where members of a nation used foreign alphabets. In fact, the written language cannot be used as a proof in determining the ethnical background of a nation. Nowadays, millions of Africans use the English alphabet, but does that mean that they're ethnical Englishmen? So, the usage of the written form of the ancient Greek language by the ancient Macedonians is no evidence that the ancient Macedonians were Greeks. Besides, the ancient Greek alphabet is not authentically Greek, but it is known that it is an adapted variation of the Phoenician alphabet. Even later on, when some Macedonians accepted the spoken Greek language, that did not mean that they were Greeks. Let us remind ourselves that the world is made of different numerous nations that speak other languages. For example, the Brazilians speak Portuguese. A good part of Latin America speaks Spanish, even though they're not Spanish. The Irish, Scottish, and Welsh people speak English, even though they're not English. There are a lot more examples like these. We will conclude that in these 40 episodes we listed testimonies from over 50 ancient authors who clearly stated that the ancient Macedonians were by no means Greek, which means that Macedonia in the past was never Greek.